Yes, I am now. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I almost forgot. Okay, guys, session two with Larry Davis. Today we're talking about the sponsorship behind your bioremediation projects that you probably didn't know exist. Larry, we're going to jump right into question one. So last week we walked through what Green Mechanics has built. This week, the question turns, how have those projects paid for the company surviving 7 years? What is the honest version, including the parts that didn't work?
Great question. So there's a combination of how do you leverage markets, uh, particularly in, let's say, in our industry, dealing with water management, stormwater, uh, and how do you leverage those markets to develop cash flow that then helps to develop other projects that are of interest. So I'm going to actually take a moment here to share my screen so that way I can give more validity to what I'm saying here and hopefully kind of connect the dots. So let me attempt to do that here. Okay. So I'm going to start here in Washington, D.C. for a second. So there are
We don't see your
different,
screen yet, just so you know.
yep,
There it is.
uh,
Now it's coming up.
there we go. Okay. And let's see here. Okay, I want to try to expand this here so that way it's a little bit easier. Okay, I want to start working on trying to expand this out a bit further so it's easier to see. So while I'm doing that, so Washington, D.C. has, as well as other states and other regions, have marketplaces. And these marketplaces are created to incentivize developing various green infrastructure. So last week I had talked about this from the perspective of building out trees and putting in green spaces that help to capture, address dirty stormwater. So there are markets in place that allow for nonprofits, businesses to install those practices and earn a residual income through environmental market credits. So I'm going to take 2 to 3 minutes to hopefully explain that. I want to try to explain the problem, and I'll explain why the credits are a solution. And then I'll connect that back to how does that work for our business model. So for Washington, D.C., for example, they've got a stormwater issue. I'm sure y'all might have heard in the news around the recent sewage spill that took place because of a bursted pipe. And now you've got 300 million gallons of raw sewage in the Potomac. On top of all of that, you also have impervious surfaces like buildings and rooftops and parking lots that every time it rains, that stormwater collects, moves, and captures nutrients like fertilizers, the dog poop that your neighbor should have picked up, but they didn't. That all ends down the drain and into the watershed. And so there's a responsibility, there's a mandate, there's a local incentive structure in place to where residents in the district, they're charged a stormwater fee. This will show up in their water bill. And this slide shows that there's an increasing amount of fees that are showing up in people's bills every single year. And so from a green infrastructure, nature-based solution perspective, this goes back to installing trees and swales and systems that can capture that stormwater. And when these projects are developed, let's say in Washington, D.C., for example, but this could be relative to your state, depending on what marketplace that they have and incentivization, you can earn stormwater credits that when a project is built, constructed, and facilitated, you're issued those credits. Those credits are like carbon credits, they're given a monetary value. You can trade those credits with businesses, residents who have impervious surface, who need to meet their compliance because if they don't meet their compliance, they're getting an angry new email or a piece of mail in the mailbox that could affect their clients and legal standing with the district. And so, for example, I'll show you a case study here in just a moment. I'm not going to bore you with all these details, but the financial benefits are when you build and construct a project on someone's site that's voluntary, the site owner is able to save money on their stormwater fees, on their water bill. And depending on the size of the site and the project developed, this could be thousands of dollars worth of water savings. And for us, we either leverage grants, we leverage um, different financial products that allows for us to be able to build and construct these systems that are on site. We're responsible for the operation and maintenance of the systems. That's what allows for us to get these credits. And then we'll trade those credits with, I'll give an example. We had a Chick-fil-A franchise owner in the district reach out to us that needed to meet stormwater compliance. And the reason why they wanted to do that is because their parking lot is income, is revenue, is people parking their cars or going through the drive-through because people order their meals. So for them, it doesn't make sense for them to get a green space on their site. It makes more sense for them to just buy those credits from us. So what this allows for is a residual income from our projects that then allows for us to build more projects and create more impact. And then it also allows for more residual income for us to do more project development elsewhere. So I'll stop there.
Larry, just to grok on some of what you said on there,
Mm-hmm.
like Chick-fil-A, let's go back into that use case.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does it mean for them, and what does it mean for you? And what's the exchange back and forth? Actual, like, I don't know if you can share the details. I don't know if that's okay or not, but can you give us maybe a range of what that could mean as well, so we understand sort of more what that means qualitatively?
Yeah, and I'll use this case study as an example. So there's a church that has parking lots and they have a high stormwater fee on their bill. And we helped to manage a project to where we were able to install some trees. Uh, we call them bioretention systems. So these are just like green spaces that you would see next to parking lots. They got plants and mulch and soil, and they take in that water. So in this case study with this church, the green infrastructure installed captured 20,000 gallons of stormwater. Now, on the marketplace, a gallon of stormwater can range anywhere from $1 to $2 a gallon. Okay. And so from this project, let's say if the we were able to negotiate credits with the Chick-fil-A franchise owner at $2 a gallon. So then that creates a $40,000 cash flow from the credits that the Chick-fil-A franchise owner would pay us for those credits. Now, it's not just, oh, they paid for the credits one time. The credits are continuous, at least in the district. Again, there's the marketplaces and their incentive structures are different from each state that has this in place. But essentially, in the district, those credits are residual for 12 years, meaning that we will have other clients, other buyers of credits that we can negotiate and trade those credits residually for 12 years. So we were able to get financing to build and construct those green infrastructure systems. This might have been through a loan or a grant to help build the project. But then now we're getting residual income on the back end of the project through the credits. And then the site owner, because we're giving this system to them for free, and because we built this green infrastructure on their site, they're getting over a $6,000 a year savings in their water bill because that green infrastructure is providing the savings. And these are just some examples, right? So the
And in this
idea is
case,
that,
in this
mhm,
case, you're saying that they would have spent the 40,000, or excuse me, $46,300. And so in this case, or something on those lines, they would have spent more due to that versus supporting the system, right?
Exactly. They would have spent the money regardless, whether it's in stormwater fees that they're already paying, or they can get a discount by buying credits from businesses that have already done the work and building these systems. They get a discount by buying the credits through us, and it helps support our business model because we're interested in going out and building more systems. We're interested in building out more nature-based systems that then allow for us to generate more credits to do the same work again, 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 essentially. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Thank you.
Mhm. And so that's an example that we're working on right now where I'll just share my screen here, where we're using this model and credits. So there are credits for Washington, D.C. There are credits for different states that may have an interest of wanting to address water pollution. And they have their different frameworks of how they structure their markets and their credits. But essentially, we're able to tap into those. And again, these systems and marketplaces are at a state level. So they're not necessarily influenced by federal. In some cases, like DC, for example, is in the district, so there's some federal lines you have to manage and contend with. But overall, these marketplaces are available at the state. And so that allows for us to be able to do outreach and engagement and build our relationships with folks that are interested in meeting stormwater management compliance when they build and construct buildings.
Mhm.
And typically, they're not even aware that these credits are available to help them meet a percentage of their compliance. It's not meaning that they're going to fulfill all of it, but it helps to meet a percentage of it. And it helps us to be able to advance our business model for some of our other nature-based systems, like the algal-turf-scrubber system for algae harvesting. Uh, that in itself has its own water credit marketplace. So it's like a compounding effect, leveraging one market, building margins to then build out other projects that also have margin incentives and also other circular products and services that come with it.
You described Chick-fil-A and you described a church, two different projects.
Yep,
How much work did you have to do in order to find the companies that were wanted to do this? Or like how much time are you spending trying to connect these dots versus just leverage the marketplace that's already existent?
correct. So there is work involved. So we, the story behind this is we were able to secure a grant that allowed for us to be able to perform outreach and engagement to site owners about one, that this marketplace existed, because most people they're just paying money towards their water bill and have, if I looked at my water bill, I'm like, what the heck is this? All I know is I'm paying $200 this month, and you try to get that out of your way and then you move on with your life. So it's providing outreach and engagement. So maybe this is sending an email, making a phone call, visiting the site owner, establishing trust. We're saying, hey, we think that your site could be eligible for a green infrastructure project. We would like to get a letter of intent that's non-binding, meaning they're not committing to anything. It just allows for us to use some grant dollars to do things like soil testing and getting a surveyor out there. So that way we can work with our engineer to be able to figure out, okay, if we were to put a green space here, 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 and here, that it could cost this much to build out a project. And then from there, we would then engage with a bank to be able to secure some form of a line of credit or a loan to be able to build and construct the project. Where we've kind of got a unique circumstance right now, not circumstance, opportunity, is that we've been successful in securing additional grant funding to not only cover the designs for doing a project, but then also gotten grant funding to then be able to build, construct, operate, and maintain. So now we further de-risked our business model to be able to get a project built, design, and operate and maintain to get those credits certified. And then we can then trade those credits So that then also includes outreach to homeowners, uh, franchise owners like the Chick-fil-A person that I've referenced. And they all know each other. All the franchise people know each other. So it's like once you get one, you might as well get 20 because they all know each other, uh, as a way to then sell those credits, exchange cash for revenue for credits, and then going out to do that same process again.
So it sounds like it's quite the snowball effect. If you had to start it all over again from scratch, or maybe we'd say anyone in the room here, say Dr. Brian or Nico decided that hey, they want to follow this exact route tomorrow. Um, is there a pathway for them, or is what you're talking about as far as this pathway severely limited? Tell us more.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, depending on what the goals are. So for us, we have a goal for trying to get out and build and construct more nature-based systems in our region. So we are trying to develop green infrastructure systems that may be a bit more engineer dense and more professional services that are involved to build, dig, excavate, and then fill in. But someone could take advantage of the same marketplace by just doing tree plantings, for example. So if I wanted to plant a tree in the district and file the paperwork to do so, that tree is valued at, I believe it's somewhere between $150 to $200 per tree that's planted on a residual basis. So
What does that mean,
there,
residual basis? What does that mean?
yeah, I'm sorry. So
No,
when I
sorry.
plant a tree, I am, and assuming that it meets compliance and code, which would, so I receive those stormwater credits. I trade those credits with people that need to meet their stormwater compliance. And so far in the going market, that those credits per tree is valued at somewhere between $150 to $200 per year. And because those credits are residual, you can go back the next year, engage with other individuals that need to meet compliance, and do the same thing again and again and again. So you don't necessarily need to have engineers and landscape architectures and geotechs and all of that. You could figure out a way of how to source and procure trees and work through the logistics to make sure that you could plant the trees in a phased approach. But that's a lower barrier of entry for getting projects built and also credits that then allow for whatever goals that the individual or entity is trying to do. So
For the entrepreneurs in this room, what's the surprising part of the credit market? The part most people don't know that exists or wouldn't think to even look for.
is that for myself or just for the people here?
Um, it was for yourself. I'm sorry. It's
Oh,
question number three in our sheet here.
oh, sorry.
So if you wanted to give advice to the entrepreneurs in the room, what's the
Mhm.
surprising part about this credit market, or the part that a lot of the
So
entrepreneurs maybe don't know exist, or what to think about this?
I think most folks, whether it's entrepreneurs or residents or business owners, I just don't know that folks know that these marketplaces exist. I've actually been spellbound by how talking with homeowners and business storefronts about, hey, are you aware about uh, stormwater fees on their water bill? And they're like, I didn't even know that existed. Or the fact that there's a pathway to where they could save money on their water utility bill through these different pathways. I think it's just awareness. I just think most people don't even know that these things exist, and then how you can leverage that as a business model or some type of model to advance, you know, impact and the sustainability, and even, for people. Like for some of our projects, depending on how large of a system we can build and construct, we're interested in trying to do a revenue share model and to as a thank you for the site owner for allowing us to work on their site, and as a way, you think that's a good way to do business. So I'm just surprised by awareness and how folks may or may not even know that these things exist.
Nico had a question in chat. Who verifies or certifies like the work? Like who
Yep.
does the proof of plant?
Yep. So this is through your Department of Environment agencies. So in DC, they're called DOE, Department of Energy and Environment. So for them, you have to be able to permit the project. Once the project is permitted, you then construct your system. And it could be as simple as planting trees or building in those swales systems that I was talking about. And then once the project is constructed, then they'll send out an agent from the department to verify the location and functionality. And they have a whole process for how that works. Usually it takes about 2 weeks for them to do post construction. And then from there, they issue certification that this project is constructed to the specs that were on file. And then here are the credits that are issued to the entity or that built the project. And then from there, the credits are then traded to individuals that meet compliance. Again, that's kind of hosted on the department's website. The department essentially serves as the ledger and, and confirming that the credits have been traded and that the entity has paid out a check to, in this case, Green Mechanics, for the value of those credits. That's usually how the process works.
I love it. You've leveraged grants, past performance, and trust-based connections together. How does the funding stack compose into like a sustainability model? And which leg of the stool of whatever this model is the most fragile?
I think the most, to answer your second question first, I think the most risky or fragile portion of the model has been construction and implementation.
Why?
That tends to be the phase that involves the most amount of cost. Um, and okay, so let me go into more detail there. So typically, and I'll differentiate ourselves of how we've been able to break through that. So typically, so if I were to, I'll use real numbers here. So let's say if I wanted to construct think of a deck on someone's house, like a deck size uh, green space bioretention system. So this is soils, mulch, stone, and a layered approach to absorb that stormwater. We did a project in Northeast DC where 1,000 square foot system to capture about 30,000 gallons of stormwater, similar to that church that I was sharing in the slide deck. That cost about $110,000 to build, um, believe it or not, because you have to excavate, you got to bring in trucks, you got to bring in material, you've got to do all of this excavation stuff. So it gets costly. And so if you're a business that, or an entity, doesn't need to be a business, but if you're an entity that doesn't have the best balance sheet or cash flow to show the banks that you're able to pay back that loan, then it's hard to get funding that way. And so we've kind of gone about that by uh, either procuring additional grants that allow for us to cover the construction phase so we de-risk the project on our end. I've seen other folks do things like crowdfunding, for example, to cover that gap. Uh, and so there are other pathways to kind of cover the construction piece, but that tends to be the riskiest part because it's the most capital dense. And then you need all access to that capital because contractors, they need money to go and do the work in a timely fashion, and stuff happens when you're constructing things. Sometimes the designs, when constructing the designs, they don't always go as planned. And you might have incurred another $5,000, $6,000 of cost because someone put the stone in the wrong place. So now they got to send out another contractor to move this heavy stone into another part of the site that then creates gradient pressure on the hydrology of the system. And then all this money starts flying out your pockets pretty quickly. So that's why I like trees. Trees are a lot simpler. You could just plant them and make sure that you've got some good mycorrhizal and good soil chemistry and ecology there. Make sure you just check in on them and monitor. A lot easier, a lot easier. So,
All right. Let me see here. So let's talk about a project then. And I'd like you, if you can, go back to one of those projects and sort of talk about um, what's, excuse me, over time, any project that you're making, is it making just enough margins to be profitable, or is it helping make enough margins that you can use that to then go to the next program? What I'm asking is this a scalable model?
oh, okay. Well, yes, if it, and it depends on the pathway that one is pursuing. So for us, we focused our model on how much stormwater we're able to capture when we build out a project because we want to maximize the amount of credits that we can earn and also the impacts of, hey, we've retained this many thousands of gallons of water that's not going into the Potomac or the Anacostia River. We also tried to aim for larger projects because we believe in doing revenue share models where it makes sense. We believe that if we can create an experience for site owners that not only are they saving money, but they're also making money at no cost to them, we think that's a good story. That's convincing. And we believe that we've developed enough innovations in technologies that allow for us to build out a green space or plant trees to where we have a certain set of amendments and additional technologies that boost the amount of stormwater capture capacity. That means more credits. That then means higher margins. That then allow for us to then have enough profit margin to then maintain our business operations, our staff and equipment and all that stuff. But then enough margins to then go out and then either build another type of green infrastructure or other types of nature-based solutions like the algal-turf-scrubber harvesting system that also has its own market incentive of credits. Um, and that setting is more around water quality benefits. So less about how much stormwater we're able to capture and hold, like in DC, that's their thesis and focus. In Maryland or Virginia, more of their focus is around how much nitrogen have I reduced? How much phosphorus have I abated? How much suspended sediments have I reduced through a nature-based system? So that's where the algae harvesting system comes in. And we can do that at very high efficiency. And then on top of that, getting paid from the credits for the water quality benefits. Then on top of that, we're then taking the algae and then converting the algae into other circular products like tiles and hardscapes and fertilizers that then we can then sell to our channel partners as additional revenue options to then do the same thing again of building out our system. So it's almost like, to answer your question, we've structured it in the way where once we get the first set of projects built, so like 2 or 3 projects built, that allows for us to then kind of get the gears into high efficiency because then we can build out more projects that build more credits that then build more products that we can sell that then lead to more projects. So it's like a positive feedback loop economically. So
I love that. A lot of times when we're working with waste to energy or WTE type solutions, especially when we're working with the banking type system, you have to have offtake agreements ahead of time. Is that the same case here? Do you have to sort of plan the whole thing out and to include your credits over time as well before you can get momentum? Or have you just never had struggles there? Like there's ample number of people that need these credits, so it kind of just falls into place really easy.
gotcha. I want to better understand the first portion again. So offtake agreement saying like, hey,
Yeah.
we have these level or this many amount of buyers in our pipeline as a guarantee that when we take out this loan or this line of credit, that this is a pathway to get there. Yeah, we do our best to do that homework ahead of time. So that way, if we need to engage, because part of the challenge too is when you work with banks, they don't understand how these marketplaces work in the first place. They're used to doing real estate deals. They're used to doing equipment financing. They're used to doing other stuff. So when you start talking about rainwater and plants, it's already a battle. It's already a battle. And so we wanted to make sure that we can show some form of arrangements that say, hey, here's our 56 buyers that have already entered into a pre-agreement. So what we did was we offered them, or we're offering them a discounted rate on credits that works still for our model. That then shows how those credits translates into cash flow. That then translates to how fast we're able to pay back that line of credit or loan, and that we've already identified these sets of sites that we're planning on doing projects with, and that we have letters of intent as justification to show that, say, hey, while this is non-binding, there's interest for a project to be developed. So that's important. Now we're in a different category because that's what we had to do historically. But now we're in a different category because, again, we've procured and secured additional grant funding that not only helps cover the engineering and designs, but now the actual construction for two projects. And now that de-risks us in particular to making sure we can get the work done, regardless of whether we need to get a loan or not. And then we get the credits, and then we've got margin to then do that same model again and again and again within reason. So,
Love it. Are you a unicorn? Are
no,
you magical in this? Could anybody
no.
else on this call replicate this model in an effective way and scalable way?
I think I think so. I think it depends on where folks are located because I said each region, each state has their own protocols for how they develop their market. So, as I was saying earlier in DC, it's about how many gallons of water. They've already, the district has already developed their manual on how much water does a tree sequester in a given year based on its size and uh, evapotranspiration. Then in Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, Ohio, other states, they may have a focus on water quality. In some states, they may have a focus on nitrogen. In other states, it might just be a focus on phosphorus, et cetera, et cetera. So there is some level of novelty and nuances depending on each state. Um, and that invites some challenges and risks depending on how much incentive and um, scalability. So I don't want to be, it would be behoove me to not say that. But I would say, depending on
The engineering
what,
mind, I love it. I
yeah,
love the cautious approach. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it depends. It depends on what the goals are for the entity, where they're trying to get to, and then which location allows for them to scale with the least amount of risk, hopefully. So not everyone can do it, but there's possibility with enough creativity.
I love it. I love it. If for those listening on this call, if they were interested in seeing what the opportunities would be for them, where would be the first step or the first place to go? What does that look like? And I imagine that might be slightly different for each state, but what would you start off this search to say, hey, is this viable in my region?
Sure, I think it's worth a conversation where you could do a quick Google search or leverage AI or whatever means that they want to use to do a search of, okay, what environmental market incentives are available in my particular state or in my particular county. Like I know within the state of Maryland, there, while there's a statewide environmental market and incentives, certain counties might have um, their own specific incentives
Hmm.
and rebates. And maybe there's a way of like, I know in Prince George's County in Maryland, Montgomery County in Maryland, Baltimore, for example, they have rebates. If you plant a tree or if you put in some type of rain barrel harvesting system or some
Mm.
type of green infrastructure, they provide a rebate for those systems to go in. And then you can leverage and capital stack that margin of a project to then go into building out maybe something a little bit bigger that allows for more rebate or credit potential that then allows for you to kind of slowly build the train there. So it just starts with what's available in my region. Does it make sense to focus there? Or if maybe there's not as many incentives available, but there's an interest to still to want to do a project. So maybe there are connections, relationships, people that may own locations that are within states that may have higher incentivizations. Um, it's trying to figure out who are the individuals that are doing this type of work and developing relationships and talking with them to see if, hey, like if there's a way to do a warm introduction or relationship connection that could lead to a project, then there could be opportunities for revenue shares that could still allow for the individual or for the entity to still um, generate impact and potential revenue from those options without really getting involved fully if they have relationships that are meaningful. So
I love it. I love it. Um, what's What's a question that I should have asked today? And actually, guys, before I get on this one, we're at our last sort of 10 minutes here. I've run out of questions. Larry's done an awesome job answering these. He's been very concise and to the point, and I think he's been very thorough as well. If y'all are noodling on some questions, please throw those in chat and I'll definitely add those. So please add your questions to chat. Larry's a wealth of information here. Larry, are you doing any like master classes to help any other sustainable entities sort of get kicked off and following your concept or your drive here? Is there any interest in doing something like that?
I know Cheyenne is on the call here. I know we've been teasing some podcast ideas to maybe not a master class, but just telling stories and yeah, just telling stories and just looking at problems and thinking about how do we better understand these problems and just inviting people to join the conversation. So we have been teasing that. It hasn't been I haven't thought about a master class, but that could be interesting. So
I think there might be a lot of community that'd be interested. Would you be willing to say like for those who are working on biomedia, bioregional acceleration, or some part of improving communities overall? It sounds to me like this is a very good first step to sort of start working with the community. One, because it builds a past performance, but two, is it starts getting capital at a lower level to maybe open up more doors to envision what your greater vision is. Is that correct, or am I missing anything here? Like, where's the risk in a lot of this? Because it sounds like this is a really good way to go for us to build like know, like, and trust a long run with our community.
yeah, I mean, there's risk in everything. Um, so there's the risk of, like you said, so you're getting community buy-in, right? So let's say someone does a letter of intent that's non-binding. So uh, that invites risk on us because there's a chance that we expended resources to say, hey, here's an option for a project to take place, but they could change their mind, right? So there's an element of risk of projects not developing, and you could think that you think a project is going to happen and then it doesn't, and that's risk. There could be risk if you see this a lot in the solar space to where if someone gets solar on their rooftop, they're they need to make sure that they're not going to be doing other work or upgrades to the house that then disrupts the performance of the system for like 20 years or whatever the lease agreement arrangements are. You know, for green infrastructure development, we have to make sure in our land easements that if we're going to put a system on the site, Um, they, the property owner can't do infrastructure upgrades to their site for those 12 years. Like, let's say they want to put in a new parking lot, or maybe they want to do, maybe they need to work on their new building, or I don't know. They want to do an extension add on. I don't know. That would cause problems for our model because that disturbance and that triggers a regulatory response to new dirty stormwater that's being created on site. And so it switches the model from being, hey, we're coming in and installing a voluntary system to, oh, this now has switched to a regulatory compliance. And those are two different categories. We had a colleague of ours that actually got into some hiccups with that, where we built and installed a voluntary system, but then one of their tenants in their building decided that they wanted to start tearing up walls and wanted to add in, they were like an artist that was leasing this building, and they wanted to add in more space for their art art displays, and that wound up triggering a mandatory um, stormwater compliance code. And we had to go through some litigations to make sure that our colleague didn't lose a part of their credits, right, for their business model. So it's just the risk is human nature, um, and accounting for those things and making sure that we're communicating as clearly as possible early on as much as possible. Um, so that way folks know what they're getting into. So
That's awesome. So, Larry, how can we stay connected with you on your journey here? What's the easiest way to keep in touch?
sure. Well, got we need to boost up our media presence on like LinkedIn and Instagram. We haven't been using it as much, but we need to start getting that going. I think Cheyenne is on the call here, uh, working on trying to get a podcast going. So um, hope to send that information over so that folks can follow the conversation. And if, in particular, if there's an interest that folks have for wanting to do work and impact, starting more in the DMV area, not the car motor place, but more DC, Maryland, Virginia area, we're pushing to expand more infrastructure development so that way we can further expand out our projects both in the region and other places. And trust is the most expensive currency. It is becoming more difficult to trust. And what I mean by that is trust to where we can engage individuals to develop a project. You'd be surprised how many people turn down opportunities for infrastructure at no cost to their site because it's free or we're absorbing all the risk. They're almost like it's too good to be true. And so folks don't do it, so they don't trust it. So for us, it's like, and I get it. I'd probably do the same thing too. If someone was talking about something free and they can save money and potentially make money, it's like, it's too good to be true. I get it. So, um, relationships. So if there are folks that you may know of that are in the district or in Maryland that you're like, hey, I've heard this conversation about water management and how it could be a benefit. Like, love to connect, love to talk it through and see if there are opportunities to collaborate and can be a benefit for all parties, because that's kind of our missions and values, how we do business. We believe that if it's possible, everyone should win. So,
I love that. Larry, final question. Are there any other struggles that you may be facing or your mission may be facing that members within the GRC community could help you along this journey? Is there anything that we can do to support you?
um, yeah, there's always challenges. But I think just awareness. I think we would love to, share more updates and progress that we're making with development, and love to just share it with the community, and folks can share those updates with their networks so that way, again, so folks can in our relationship ecosystems can be more aware of how these programs and markets are available. and that the common person may or may not even know they exist. They might have heard of carbon credits, but not water credits. So like, what the heck is that? Um, so it's just basic things like that. Or if we're putting out podcast material, share it with your circles. We just want to create more awareness for people to then think about how do we better look at problems and then hopefully come to solutions that make sense.
Love it. Love it. Larry, we're at the top of the hour. I appreciate you so much. Anyone on the call, I hope you guys enjoyed this. For everyone on the call, I hope you enjoyed this. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, so we have the green mechanic here. Larry's been doing this for a while, and Larry, the floor is going to be open. So if anyone would like to come off the
Yeah.
chat, we appreciate you so much, guys. Next week, I don't have a speaker. I was trying to schedule Frederick, our very own Frederick, for next week, but he could not make it on next Wednesday. So I do have an open spot next Wednesday. So if you, someone on this call or someone you know, wants to get interviewed and share more about what you're doing within the GRC community, we'd love to have you. And that said, we'll just open this up for open discussion. So if you have something you want to say, comment, feedback, questions, please come off the mute. The floor is all of yours. Larry, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Rick, go
absolutely. And
ahead,
thank you
buddy.
for the patience.
Yeah, I'll be very brief with you, Sage. I think we should interview you next week, but we can, um, I think you need to be interviewed. Anyway, think
I
about
need to
it.
be interviewed.
Yes, 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 yes. You should be on the spotlight. We
Okay.
interview you. Okay. I'm quite happy to help facilitate that because it's nice to know the man behind the scene. Okay. Actually, while this is going, I did the same thing last week, Larry. So this one's more relevant to your question. And I'll put the link in as soon as I've done it. But I'll put the chat in what I'm, and I'll be interested to know whether this um, Google document will contain anything in it which may be relevant or advance your thinking. It may be old hat, but I'm just curious to know whether there's something there. I'll put the link in as soon as I finish it. I'd like to bring up another issue, which has to do development in urban areas, where in our area, the developers coming in and they're taking down these huge, beautiful trees. I mean, 60-year-old trees they're taking down, 4 feet across. And, I think there should be, and they don't, there should be a penalty for it. If you're going to take it down, you pay the environmental cost of what's being lost. So I think there needs to be incentives to encourage developers to keep the trees insofar as they can. Otherwise, they're just going to take them down. So anyone doing something like that you're aware of, Larry?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a big problem, and I struggle with it because, like you said, I look at it from a time ecology's perspective. So it's like this tree is embodied time, and we're all bounded by it. So it's not like if I cut down a 60-year tree, so someone may think, okay, I'm going to plant 60 years worth or 60 trees to offset the 60-year. In the time ecologies don't work that way. And there's just a big problem around how we even look at time as it relates to trees. And also, too, just the protocols, if you are going to cut down trees that are established with new trees as a way of offset, we're doing a terrible job. Like I'm working on a project right now that is dense urban tree planting in a municipality, but the challenge is that you've got super intense heat island effect. You've got how the trees are sourced from nurseries and how they're, you know, being transported, how the contractor puts the trees into the ground. You could order 100 trees, maybe 2-inch caliber trees, but then half of them die because of malpractice. So it compounds the problem even worse because there's a narrative that you can just offset an established tree by just planting smaller trees, but then we can't even do that well. So it's a big problem. I I mean, you got folks in the district like KC Trees that are trying to do some work like that, or try to think through more proactive measures of, you know, canopy layering with existing trees and trying to install understory trees to create more resiliency, and then imposing more penalties if those trees are cut down. I don't have a solution to that. It's a big problem. It's bad. I resonate with what you're saying.
Thank you, Larry. Nico, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, great talk again, Larry. Two questions, just a short one, and then possibly a slightly longer one. I often see trees that are not planted in a tree well, or there's no depression or catchment potential. So just wondering, when you mentioned tree planting could be eligible, I think for stormwater credits, is that piece of it vetted or disqualified? And then the second question is, here in California, we have at the state level what's called the Cutting the Green Tape Initiative, which is kind of addressing the tremendous amount of environmental bureaucracy we have that has been shown to slow down the implementation of environmental work. And
Yeah.
for a lot of projects now, you can qualify for a streamlined permitting process without fees. And it's a tremendous development, and I'm just wondering if you have anything like that in your region.
Two great questions. So with the trees for certification, they're depending on the region, county, jurisdiction, they've set their codes for what constitutes a proper tree planting. My conviction is that you should have trees that are planted with pavers that allow for aeration for the tree roots, doping it with mycorrhizal, so you've got that root to fungi relationship with biochar. So that way you create more amorphous structure in the soil. So that way you have more water capacity for the trees, especially since they're going to evapotranspirate more in urban environments. And the fact that the trees are fragmented from each other on average. Um, they just kind of, now you should have like a overstory, understory layout for the trees. So that way you create more resilience and habitat stability, but they're just plain trees and they call it a day. Those are my convictions, but for the most part, my understanding is that as long as the specs are, as long as the root ball cage is trimmed off at the base at 50%, um, that the branches that are offloaded, that they're, you know, fingering out in a healthy fashion, and that there's proper watering for the tree for the first year after planting. That's a big problem as well because there's not enough watering going on. I've stepped in and said, hey, we've developed a process of using like sensors, like low-tech sensors that can interconnect on a dashboard to then get a better sense of what trees, when they're planted in certain regions, are evapotranspirating more than others. So that way you can take a more cost-effective approach of watering needs, is the first point. And then to your second question around the bureaucracy, it's troubling over here. Um, I'll give you an example. Last week I talked about the algal-turf-scrubber system, where we're putting a pump into a river, a water resource, pumping that water into flow waves that help to collect existing algae that are in the water, and then the water kind of discharges back out to the open environment. There's a permit now where if we're pumping more than 10,000 gallons a day, which sounds like a lot, it's about 40 bathtubs worth of water a day. That could lead to a 6-month permit review. But if you look at the history of why that permit came into existence, is because typically people that were pumping more than 10,000 gallons of water a day were wastewater treatment plants, coal power plants, or cogeneration power plants that were snatching water out of surface or aquifers. And God forbid they try to re-inject the water back into aquifers that cause a slurry of issues. 10,000 gallons, that's the rule that was set for them. But we're collateral damage because we're pumping water, but we're not building power plants, and we're not, trying to do sewage treatment. We're just pumping water into a flowway for like 30 seconds. It's going right back out. We're not disturbing the wetland hydrology or the delineation or rare magnolia plant species. It's just pumping water for 30 seconds, releasing it. Oh, there's algae. Okay, let's improve the water quality. And then, oh yeah, there's algae tiles. 6 months. It's like, no, let's figure out how we can make this better. So I wish we were doing more in this area like California is on the permitting side. It would make things easier, but I also understand why they exist as well. So special categories. I wish there were special category permits where it made sense, because sometimes people take advantage of that stuff and we don't do that either. So
Thanks.
All right. I think we're at a lull here. Larry, this was great. I wish the turnout was more because I think this information was much more important than last week. So I wish we saw more of the crowd from last week. But we had some technical glitches at the beginning of our week and we didn't get it published until I think it was just yesterday afternoon. So I apologize about those glitches on my side. We appreciate you coming on here. Guys, I already put Larry's recording up on YouTube. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I'm getting good at the whole GRC, getting the recordings up. I will have this recording up on the GRC YouTube channel. Hopefully by the end of tomorrow, I'll have that up there as well. Again, next week, I need someone. So unless we don't find anyone, we'll just have an open session where we can talk about whatever. Rick can interview me if he wants or something on those lines. I don't know,
Oh,
but
I'll do it. I'll do it if you're willing to put
that's fine.
yourself
I don't
on.
mind.
Okay,
I'm
we'll
not
have a
scared of
we'll
anything,
have
my
a.
friend.
I know, no, no. I think you have. There's a lot of things that people don't know about you and what you're up
Oh,
to, and I think we should make that in a good way. In a good way
okay.
now. Okay, in a very good way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So let's talk about this offline.
Yeah.
Again, if y'all want to get interviewed, Nico, we've never gotten you in front of the camera and talked about some of your stuff. So I don't even know what you work on, dude. So if you ever want to come out here and get interviewed on your projects, whatever, and get more awareness out there, we'd love to have you. This same style interview where it's just instead of the sage on stage, we're talking about like the real stuff because this stuff is not easy. So I think those real discussions, we need more of those. So guys. Again, thank you so much. You can find me offline or on the Slack channel. I'll do my best to answer. And then the following week after next week, we're going to have Frederick come back out of Kenya. Frederick has a deed and he's working on his next project. So he's coming on to talk about his updates out there. And I'm really excited to share that with the whole group. So looking forward to it. All right, y'all. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
yeah.
All right, take care.